This video is sponsored by Sakura Co. and Tokyo Treat. The term, "if looks could kill," can be interpreted in two ways. Firstly, the original intention of the term coined by Friedrich Nietzsche back in 1878. This being that if our looks of hatred or spite could harm the subject of our gaze, then our species would have died out years ago. Though over time, some have chosen to interpret the term in a more positive way. If looks could kill can also relate to a person of such physical beauty that they can cause those who view them to die. And two characters who fill out both of these terms rather well come in the form of the sadistic servant-slicing sash and sickle siblings, Daki and Gyutaro, the 6th ranked Upper Moon Demon of Kimetsu no Yaiba. During the Showa period, a popular hangout site for youths were the Daigashiya, small shops which would sell treats and trinkets at affordable rates. They are some of the fondest memories for those who lived through that era, and now you can experience a piece of that history and culture with Sakura Co., a monthly box service filled with traditional treats and snacks from Japan's own local snack makers. Along with this, it comes with a special guidebook, which not only have details about the snacks inside, but are also chock full of information about Japan as well, which are all based on the themes selected monthly, and coming soon is the Valentine's themed box. These snacks can be the perfect icebreaker you use to finally confess to your crush, or recover from heartbreak if it ever backfires. I was actually pretty fond of the heart-shaped strawberry chocolate arare from the Kinagawa prefecture. They were really tasty, and I was amazed at how fast they vanished when I actually started eating them. Though if you're looking for more famous Japanese snacks, like wild Kit Kat flavors and Pocky, you can also check out the Tokyo Treats box, which is another monthly snack box that is filled to the brim with all of the popular treats that Japan has to offer. It's actually considered the biggest Japanese snack box on the planet, and of the treats I got, I absolutely love the kimchi flavored Don Don Yaki, and I definitely recommend you try it when you pick up one of the boxes. For more information about both, check the description below. Now this video contains spoilers up to at least the end of the Red Light District arc of Kimetsu no Yaiba, so if you want to avoid spoilers, you have been warned. Daki and Gyutaro are the major antagonistic forces of the Red Light District arc of Kimetsu no Yaiba. They are a pair of siblings turned into demons through Doma for the events of the main story. And throughout those years, they have brought in enough money and killed enough pillars to have earned their own position as the 6th rank Upper Moon Demon, a title that they share equally, though Daki acts as the face of the position while Gyutaro acts as the muscle, which actually is a living condition that reflects their relationship perfectly. But before we get too into that, let's understand the meaning behind their names and design. Starting first with Daki. Interestingly enough, she actually has a couple of aliases besides her demon one, though we're going to start with the name given to her by Muzan. Now, the name Daki is comprised of two characters, the first meaning fallen or degenerate, and the other meaning princess. So altogether, Daki essentially means degenerate princess, which is likely a joke about her profession as an oiran, or essentially a high-class Japanese prostitute. Though Daki's status as an Oran means that she is at the top of the ladder in the Yujo class system, hence the addition of princess in her name, along with why she can so casually abuse the lower-ranking Yujos without any issue. And this princess portion of her name appears in quite a few of her other identities, these being Yutama Hime and Warabi Hime, which Yutama Hime translates essentially to household gem princess, which is likely chosen to describe her beauty and how she was a gem that one would desire to share a night with, where Warabi Hime essentially means bracken or coarse fern princess, likely selected to reflect her personality and how cruel or rough she can be, though it was also likely selected based on the myth connected to bracken ferns and how they can grant perpetual youth, as Daki has lived and thrived in the Red Light District for at least 100 years. Though before becoming a demon, she actually had a much crueler name, one which on the surface appeared to be a more beautiful name, when in reality it was a curse. This name being Ume. Ume's origins is taken from the character at the beginning of the name for a disease that claimed the life of her mother not long after her birth. This being Baidoku, or syphilis, which is a vicious STD that tended to spread like wildfires through the unfortunate lower-class households of the Yujos, which Ume's family originally came from. Though this name did have a hidden beauty to it, as other translations of Ume could be plum, which while working as a Yujo herself, she was known as Shura Ume, or white plum, which was likely done to disguise the true origins of her name and relate to one of Japan's most popular flowers, the plum flower, which is either a vibrant pink or a pure white. And before the Hine period of Japan, where it was replaced by the cherry blossom, it was the flower to view during its blossoming period, vibrant and loved. You can even see a stylized plum flower on the face of Daki's demon design. Which, speaking of her design, it is clear that Daki values her high position in life now, as while fighting, she will regenerate not only her clothes, but her jewelry as well. From her three-legged komageta to her kanzashis, though the most important accessory in her entire design is her vibrant pink obi, or decorative belt, designed to be worn with a kimono. Though Daki's obi is much different than the average one, being created from her own blood and flesh thanks to the power of her blood demon art, this being obi manipulation, where Daki can generate a multitude of obi sashes from her body and control them independently like limbs. These sashes are razor sharp as well, being able to slice cleanly through both body and building with ease, though Daki can wrap and compress a target into the obi and flattening them out and mixing them into the pattern. She can then use these to keep her prey fresh over long periods of time, along with being able to use them for hostages, because if a slayer were to cut the obi incorrectly, they would slice the person inside as well. Daki can also detach her created obis to create sentient minion obis, which can be used to spy on girls that she is suspicious of, along with guard her own pantry filled with a bunch of other captured women. These minions can telepathically communicate with Daki and update her on any oddities, though to create them she must attach a portion of her main strength as well. Luckily, she can just fuse these obis back into herself, returning her to full power without much issue. And while at her full power, Daki can freely manipulate up to 8 separate obi sash-like tendrils coming out of her back so that she can use to attack with, and she's even formed special attacks with them. Along with this, Daki can also change part of her body into an obi, making it hard to cut because there's such little resistance offered by such a wobbly piece of fabric. This is mostly just used to protect her neck from Nichiren blades. This aspect of her ability also seems to reference the Roku Rokubi, or long-necked woman, which is a yokai of Japanese urban legend that is frequently found at brothels. They tend to dress like yujos and appear to be normal women until you notice their incredibly long necks. And they vary from harmless to incredibly hostile depending on the story, though throughout a lot of their monstrous depictions they prey mostly on men, hence why they are mostly found at brothels. Now, one of the only special attacks that we see Daki create is the 8-layered obi slash, where Daki will extend out all 8 of her obis overhead and interweave them into a pattern before slicing downwards. And due to the interweaving positions of the obis, Daki's attack has no blind spots, meaning most caught in it will be unable to counter. Now, aspects of this attack, along with its usage in the story, feel inspired by the battle between Yamata no Orochi and Susanoo, with Orochi being this giant 8-headed snake with 8 tails who would demand yearly sacrifices of the most beautiful women. They were eventually slain by the recently banished Susanoo, who used his skills to pin down all 8 heads of the beast before severing them, and then severing its tail. And from the beast's body, Susanoo discovered the Ami no Murakumo no Soragi, a sword which has become iconic of the deity. Daki relates this story in a number of ways. First, she would regularly hunt and kill beautiful women specifically. Along with this, her obi sashes tend to appear in sets of 8, and function similar to a tail. Along with this, we see Tanjiro able to overcome the strength of the sash's wobbly body by pinning them down and slicing them off. And he does this by tapping partially into a long since dead art style that has him dance on the same realm as the gods, as this was the beginning of him tapping more into the Dance of the Fire God style and abandoning his position as a Breath of the Water user. So in a way, he is very similar to Susanoo here. Though once her head was severed, Daki didn't reveal a magical sword, but instead, the true venomous fangs of this beast, as from her body emerged her other half. Now, before we discuss him, let's first understand the meaning behind his name, because unlike Daki, he only has the one, and it's rather simple. Gyutaro isn't really a name, more so a job, with the Gyu portion of it being a person who would work around the outskirts of the entertainment or red light districts of Japan and try to entice new customers into entering and spending money, while the Toro portion of his name just means elder son or older boy. So, when he was born into a Yujo family, Gyutaro was expected to work as a Gyu, eventually adopting the title as his own name. His design also nicely complements Daki's. Firstly, while Daki is traditionally beautiful, Gyutaro is rather unsightly, not only in his emaciated torso and ragged kimono, but all along his body are ink blots, which are seemingly added to represent gushing wounds. And while Daki's skin is relatively flawless, except for the crack lines that form when she's at full power, Gyutaro's is very rough. Along with this, the color of their hair also matches a yin-yang dynamic, with Daki at her full power having long white hair with greenish tips, while Gyutaro has unkept black hair with similar greenish tips. Gyutaro is also seen wearing a large red sash all around his body, which is very similar to the obis that Daki can create. They also both simultaneously possess the Upper Moon Demon's sign, with their irises being replaced with the kanji for their ranking. Though to Gyutaro, his sister comes first. He acts almost as her guardian, even if he is the one who is regarded as the actual 6th Upper Moon Demon. And thanks to their shared existence, to kill either of them, you actually need to kill both of them. Though to accomplish this, you would need to overwhelm Gyutaro's own talent as a fighter and as a demon. Firstly, let's focus on Gyutaro's fighting capabilities, as he uses a pair of sickles known as kamas, which are forged from his own blood and flesh. Now, kamas are designed to be used in a variety of martial arts. They are used to trap and disarm opponents' weapons before following through with a rapid assault of slashes. The hooked curve on the blade leaves a nasty scar as well, though Gyutaro is entirely self-taught, picking up on how to use them as a child when he found a farmer's hoe, and he began to play with it due to his poor upbringing, which honestly reflects the weapon's origin quite well, as it started out as a tool for slashing crops while farming, and was later refined into a warrior's weapon, thanks both in part to its design and its accessibility. Now, Gyutaro's kamas are special beyond just the fact that they're made from his flesh. They are also coated in a powerful poison which would instantly kill a normal person and heavily incapacitate others. Though beyond just his skills, Gyutaro also has his blood demon art, this being the blood sickles. This blood demon art has Gyutaro release his blood in a highly pressurized state. This allows it to shoot out as a razor-sharp long-range slash. These tend to be shot from his kamas in an attack he calls Flying Blood Sickle. These slashes can also home in on a target, making running away not a real option when dealing with them. He can also release his blood in a defensive style as well, which he refers to as Rampant Arc Rampage, where Gyutaro surrounds himself in a whirlwind of blood, which solidifies and blocks any incoming attack. The attack name is seemingly in reference to Gyutaro's own savage nature, reinforcing the inelegance of his fighting style. Though his real power comes from his refined blood sickle technique called Rotating Circular Slash, where Gyutaro focuses his blood into his arms and releases it in a high pressurized spiral, which easily shreds anything it touches. The design of this attack seems very similar to a famous artistic depiction of the Orochi winds, these being cold mountainous winds that destroy crops and cause damage to the villages below, often depicted as a savage dark spiral. And together, Gyutaro and Daki are quite formidable foes, and part of what makes them such a powerful unit is their history together and the pact that Gyutaro made, which led to them becoming demons. As before the major events of Demon Slayers lived a lonely, unwanted child. This boy was starved, beaten, and forced to work. His job became his only identity. His only toy was a sickle someone had tossed away, and his only meals were insects and rodents. But, much like a hollowed tree, he clung to life no matter how hard things got. Eventually, his mother would give birth to another child, though unlike him, they were beautiful, with snow-white hair and hazel eyes. She eventually became his entire world. Her existence gave him purpose and inspired him to take up a job as a debt collector, something he was scarily good at. Eventually, his sister would begin work as a yujo. With their mother dead and their father unknown, all the siblings had were each other, and together they were happy. Until one night, while being employed by a wandering samurai, the sister, likely disgusted with her treatment, acted out much like her brother, gouging the samurai's eye out with a hairpin. This action had immediate and gruesome consequences, as she was bound and burned alive for her actions. Her charred body, still alive, left in a shallow grave a shadow of her former self, also that her brother could uncover it, who, during his grieving, was nearly cut down as well by the same man, being asked by a woman who worked at the debt collecting agency to do so, though instead of lying down and dying, Gyutaro got jealous. His envy turned to rage, and he grabbed his trusty sickle, and he murdered the woman speaking ill of his sister. He then began to speak about how the samurai was such a whiny individual, someone who must have been born with a silver spoon in their mouth, because from his perspective, that's the only way he could justify the situation. Why should someone be allowed to lash out over losing an eye when he has lost so much more and had to stay content with it? Cool enough, there's actually a tie back to this event from his past during his fight in the main series, where Gyutaro literally gives his eyeball to Daki without even needing to be asked, also that he could assist her during the fight. And it was even the same eye that the samurai was missing. He then killed the samurai without much of an issue, and carried his slowly dying sister through the cold, empty streets, crying out for anyone to save her. Which is when Doma stumbled upon Gyutaro, carrying with him the body of a woman he had just slaughtered. He then offered them a deal. He would heal Gyutaro and his sister. In exchange, they would become demons and serve his master. Gyutaro agreed to this deal without a second thought, and together, they became Gyutaro and Daki, the Entertainment District Demons. Also, an interesting detail, Doma at this time was only ranked 6th in the Upper Moon Demons. Along with this, Muzan seemed to be kind to the two, not only feeding Daki sweet words while secretly considering her an idiotic child, but actually respecting Gyutaro's greedy and envious personality, considering them to be great aspects of a demon. Part of their characters also seem to be designed in a way to act as sort of a dark mirror to what Tanjiro and Nezuko could become, with Gyutaro being so obsessed with saving or protecting his sister that he would give up his humanity so willingly. This layered on top of Nezuko almost losing control of herself during the fight with Daki shows just how close the two are to teetering over the edge. Though, Gyutaro would never regret his decision of becoming a demon, as not only did it grant him the power to take back from a life that had dealt him such a bad hand, but also allowed him to see Daki succeed, going from some low-class Yujo to a full-blown Oran for a high-class family name, this being the Kyogoku clan, which interestingly enough has a tie back to Daki's connection to Orochi, as it was the clan that governed over Izumo, a province in which the fight between Orochi and Susanoo took place, and where Susanoo established himself afterwards. Also, weirdly enough, Susanoo turns his wife-to-be into an ornament during that story, which could be the influence to why Daki turns people into obis, though it is a power of Susanoo and not Orochi, so I'm not fully sure if they're connected, though I thought I might mention it here. Though the reason that Gyutaro felt it so necessary that Daki succeed is because deep down he felt that Ume was never given a real chance at life. Not only born into a low-class family, not just named after syphilis, but also raised by a nameless brute whose influence led to her death. He felt that she could have been happy if she was born into another family, which is why, in their demon form, he allows Daki to be the face of the operations. Though, she needed him just as much as he needed her. And in their final moments together in Purgatory, Yume and Gyutaro confide into each other, as no matter how rough their exteriors had gotten, no matter how cruel they had become, deep down, they loved each other more than anything else. And together, they descended into the flames of Naraka, not redeemed, but content in their decisions, as long as they were together. Gyutaro and Daki are such a fantastic introduction to the Upper Moon Demons, showing our previously understood mechanics of demon slaying have changed with their simultaneous defeat requirement, which not only shows how these beings have been able to survive for hundreds of years, but also shows how much further Tanjiro and everyone else needs to climb in order to destroy the remaining 5. But more importantly, Gyutaro and Daki introduced a vital element of the Upper Moon 6's writing, this being how they reflect those they are fighting. Now, I already mentioned the Tanjiro connection, but Gyutaro and Tengen also reflect each other in a few ways, as both of their upbringings were rather dark. Tengen forced to watch his family kill each other, and see that his brother had become hollow on the inside. Gyutaro had to witness the death of the only thing that gave him purpose. And sadly, the only natural talent that the two seemed to share was the ability to survive. Though, while Gyutaro began to build up a jealous hatred that fueled him, Tengen instead used spite to motivate himself, as instead of complaining about what others had and taking it, he built him and his companions up to be better and more true to themselves in the end. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/medinotthebadguy. And if you want something to fend off the poison of Gyutaro, well, I heard that a copy of Shimoneta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist, can help you build up your toxin immunities.